February is Black History Month, so we are honoring some of Northeast Ohio's most notable African Americans throughout history. Excuse me, there we go. And we begin with a friend of the show who obviously has me for verklempt, Robert Madison. It was a thrill meeting him when he came into the show. He's a World War II vet and the first African American to earn an architecture degree here in Ohio. And Leon-Bibb, who else has his story?
Whether Robert Madison is looking at architectural lines drawn on a computer screen or lines penciled on a sheet of paper, he is thinking of one word: architecture.
Well, this is all new to me.
Even in retirement, he offers thoughts to those working the profession who look to lay in the drawing before any building's concrete is laid in. Cleveland architect Robert Madison was inspired by his mother, who watched him pencil a line across a paper. That was in 1929.
If Mother says so, that's what it's going to be. That's how I became an architect.
When Madison entered Howard University in Washington, D.C., architecture was the goal downrange. But then World War II exploded into his life. An Army lieutenant, Madison went to war, serving in the then Army's racially segregated units. It was a time black troops demanded that they too be involved in the heat of battle.
The NAACP said when they come back, they can then demand whatever they need because they have paid a price. That's why I went to battle.
After the war, in 1946, Western Reserve University initially refused him entry into its architecture school because he was black. "There will never be a black architect," said a university dean.
The challenge was there, but the success of meeting the challenge was what inspired me to say, well, you can do it.
So Madison put on his old World War II uniform again, and in uniform told the university, "This country owes me." In the early 1950s, he graduated, becoming the first black certified Ohio architect. Madison made his mark nationwide and beyond. Architect for one of the concourses at Cleveland Hopkins Airport, college buildings throughout Cleveland, associate architect on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Cleveland Brown Stadium, and many dozen more. The Robert P. Madison architectural firm, which he founded decades ago, continues. Sandra Madison and her husband Kevin, Madison's nephew, are part of the new ownership.
Every day his handprint is here.
You know, it's never anything but design excellence.
We want to keep the legacy of who he is and what he's done.
Bob Madison is proud of every building he ever designed and constructed, including the Cleveland State Office Tower. But this building was a challenge. Because of the rail lines of the RTA below the street, the building had to be constructed on pillars.
But one Madison-designed building is of major international note. On the African continent, the U.S. Embassy office building in Dakar, Senegal. The United States offered Madison the contract to build its embassy in the country from where Madison's ancestors were first enslaved and brought to the United States. Robert P. Madison, an American story.
The Lord has been good to me. I've been blessed. I really have been blessed.
For 3 News, I'm Leon Bibb.
Thanks, Leo. What a tremendous story. We'll close out Front Row after our final timeout.